Hi everyone, and welcome to the Johanna Konta podcast, your dose of relaxspiration where we get to meet amazing people from the world of sport, business, entertainment, and just life in general. In this episode, we speak to professional surfer Lucy Campbell, who is quite literally making waves in the sport, which was set to see its debut in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. I first met Lucy through our mutual love of watches. We are both incredibly lucky to work with Breitling, one of the true greats in watchmaking, and it was at an event at their flagship store in London that we first crossed paths. More about that in the interview. Breitling make beautiful watches and have pioneered design and technology in the industry since 1884. They recently launched the Squad on a Mission campaign, which celebrates exceptional people in sport, cinema, aviation, and exploration and the united pursuit of their missions. I absolutely love their new Super Ocean 57 range, which includes a rainbow limited edition supporting NHS frontline workers, donating £1,000 from each watch sold. This is in addition to the incredible donation of £500,000 that Breitling made to 5 charities to support frontline workers globally. To find out more about Breitling's amazing heritage and to check out their watches, visit breitling.com. So, moving on now to your questions. For those of you who have listened to my previous episodes, you'll know that this is the time in the podcast where I get to answer your questions. For any newbies listening in for the first time, firstly, hello. Secondly, check out the previous couple of episodes. Ahead of each episode, I'll be asking you to submit questions to me via social media, where you can find me at Johanna Konta. It's your chance to find out more about me, tennis, the tour, my dogs. I absolutely love dog questions, but basically anything. Thanks to everyone who submitted their questions for this episode. There were loads, so let's get through as many as we can. First up, we have a question from Nick, who asked, when did you realise that you might be good enough to look at tennis as a career, and what club did you start at? I don't actually know the specific date or how old I was. All I know is that ever since I was a little girl and all through my childhood, adolescence, young adulthood and even now is that I always wanted to be a professional tennis player. I wanted to be the best in the world, and that is something I still strive towards today. I guess it wasn't until I became more successful and I guess actually started earning some money from my tennis that I realized that, okay, this is something that I can make a living from. Until then, it was just the struggle of trying to make it, really, just to try to make it as a professional. I started playing in Australia, in Sydney. That's where I was born, and that's where I first started to play the sport. So I don't remember the specific club that I started there, but I do know it was really close to the primary school that I was going to at the time, which is in a place called Artarmon. And yeah, I remember this club was there, and they did after school care, so they picked a bunch of us kids up and took us there. Both my parents were working at the time, so I think it was quite handy. Next, we have from the aptly named Fluffy Yellow Balls. Which countries do you most like visiting on tour and why? So I absolutely love playing in the UK. This is home. I absolutely love the whole grass court season, the whole swing, starting off usually in Nottingham, then going to Birmingham, then to Eastbourne, and then obviously the crown jewel being Wimbledon. That whole period of just being able to get in my car to go to a tournament is honestly so special, because I never get to experience it outside of this period in the summer. Outside of home tournaments, I think definitely Australia. The food in Australia and the fact that I have family there still, my sister's there and my nephews, my brother-in-law, I absolutely love going back there, and that is where I spent my early years, my childhood. So definitely that is a second home for me. Outside of that, I definitely love playing in the US. I absolutely love New York. I love the US Open. The energy of New York is absolutely infectious. and Indian Wells is a pretty spectacular tournament as well. And lastly, and I know I've said pretty much everywhere, but lastly, I love playing in Italy. I absolutely love playing Rome. The food, the people, Rome itself is just, everywhere you look, it's a piece of history. So yeah, I know I basically said the whole globe, but there we go. Next up is Tim, who asked, is your strategy different on different surfaces, and do you have a favorite? I get asked this question actually quite a lot, especially in press conferences and in general, of what's my favorite surface. And there's usually an assumption of what my favorite surfaces are and are not. And I've always maintained, and I say this now as well, I 100% do not have a favorite surface. One of my favorite things about this sport is the change in surface. And so for me, I absolutely love that transition period of when we have those first few practices on the hard, or then on the clay, and then on the grass, and then back on the hard. So I absolutely love that whole transition process. And I think strategy wise, I think the most important thing for me to keep in mind, and a lot of players, is one, I bring to the court what I bring on any surface, but then at the same time enjoying the surface that I'm on, so playing the kind of game that surface invites me to play. So obviously on clay, I'm anticipating that I'm going to be playing some longer points. The court, the surface asks for that. And then equally so on the grass, obviously the balls are staying a lot lower, so it is asking for me to maybe play a bit more slice, or it definitely some shorter points there, a lot to do with the serve and return, and obviously the hard courts are somewhere in between there. But yeah, I think it's just really being open to what the surface that you're on, the surface that you are on, is asking you to do. I think that's probably the most specific as it would be strategy wise, but obviously then a lot of things depend on the opponent you are playing, and you definitely prepare differently for different players. Chris asked next, how important is it to have hobbies other than tennis or for any job, and what are yours? Well, I definitely think to be productive and to be fresh and to be really engaged in what you're doing in your profession, I think it is definitely important to have some balance in your life. And I know that's definitely been important for me. So when I truly also started enjoying what I was doing, is actually coincidentally when I started also being successful at it. And I think that definitely helped the fact that I really started enjoying my life off the court as well, in the sense of just taking enjoyment from the little things, from spending time with my dogs, with my family, in the kitchen, cooking. I absolutely love cooking. So I think it's just 100% important to invest time in yourself as a person. And I think that can only help in really applying yourself in what you do for a living, whatever that is. Finally, a question from Bjorn, who asked, tell us about your childhood. Were you playing tennis all the time, or did you have a chance to play other sports? And what is the social life like as a young player? That is a long question. So I'll break it up in segments, I think. I actually just mainly play tennis, and I think partly that was just because I absolutely fell in love with it, especially once I started competing. I absolutely got the bug for it. So I wasn't, I think, as keen to maybe try other sports. In saying that, I did do a little bit of athletics when I was still in primary school. I remember I won my school and then my district in, I think it was 800 meters. And so I was able to go to states, because obviously I was in Australia at the time, so it would have been the state of New South Wales. And I remember that I did actually want to go run, but it just didn't work out with my tennis training at the time, and so I just never ended up doing it. But I definitely do think in hindsight, and especially when I talk to my parents, definitely having the opportunity to maybe do other sports would have been great. However, you know, that's just the way the cookie crumbles, and I 100% don't regret anything that I did or in any way that we did with my parents, to be fair. In terms of social life as a young player, I think it completely varies from person to person. I've never been a massive social butterfly, so even as a young girl, I I never really craved to do the sleepovers or things like that. I definitely went to a few, but I loved tennis. And so I was very committed to doing what I need to do to be the best at that. And that to me wasn't really a sacrifice. It was something that I was just 100% willing to give, because I've always loved what I've done. 100% not every day, because I think you can't have good days every day, and I've had very, very tough years as well. But I think it was just that underlying desire to keep going, to be fair, which was always took, I guess, for me, precedent over social life, really. Thanks so much for everyone who submitted questions. Hopefully I did them justice. Stay tuned next as I spend time with the amazing professional surfer Lucy Campbell. Welcome to the show, Lucy. Thank you so much for coming on. How have you been finding the lockdown so far?
I've been finding it, it was a little bit tricky the first sort of couple of weeks, and then I just sort of got into the swing of things, I guess.
Yeah.
Everything got cancelled, and I guess it's been the same for you. All your matches and everything probably cancelled. So that was a bit weird, sort of having nothing to work towards. And sort of have like a goal for your training and things. But I've slowly sort of got used to just taking things a bit steadier and just changing my focus on things, I guess.
No, for sure. I think definitely I went through a kind of this mourning period and then this kind of realization period that actually, you know what, this can be nice too. I can find something good in this. No, for sure. I remember, I think about maybe 2 weeks after I got home from the US, when Indian Wells, one of our tournaments out there, just got cancelled. I definitely had a miniature breakdown, like proper sobbing, crying on my bed. I miss my life. Like I miss doing what I do. And then slowly, I think, like everybody right now, you kind of find your new groove essentially, and you find different miniature goals, like you said.
I think it's awesome. I think everybody's sort of trying different things and just taking a different outlook on everything, and just getting involved with different hobbies or whatever, just trying their hand and learning new things. And it's awesome to see what everybody's up to. And
actually, you and we met at a Breitling event last year, and I'm going to be completely honest, okay? I find you guys so cool. The Surfer Squad, honestly, that's like a level of coolness that I will just never reach. To me. No, but honestly, you guys were all there as a group, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like, as a tennis player, I'm just not that cool. I'm really not that cool. Like, my boyfriend thinks I'm cool. My dogs think I'm cool. Probably not for my tennis career, although they like the fact that I have lots of tennis balls around. But honestly, you guys are so cool as a group.
We can basically just all get together and talk about waves. That's probably about it.
But you know what? That is literally cool. So what you do is just cool. What you talk about is just cool. But we were actually there because we were launching the brand's partnership with Ocean Conservancy. What's it like for you being part of a sport that's at the forefront of such an amazing movement?
It's incredible, really, to, especially with surfing, takes me to some incredible corners of the world, and although they're stunning, you do really see the effects of sort of plastic pollution and things like that firsthand. And so it's really amazing to be able to partner with brands like Breitling to like try and spread the word about it and try and get people aware of the issues that we're facing.
And as someone who spends so much time in the water, the health of our seas and oceans must be so much more of an immediate concern for you. Have you seen a shift in the last few years as awareness of single-use plastics, like you said, and the health of the water has really grown? Have you seen how that's affected your work in general?
Yeah, 100%. There's definitely a lot more plastics in the ocean and getting washed up on the beaches. And I think it's something that we just all need to sort of try and shift our habits. It's so easy to buy single use and it's so available. But it's something we just need to all try and rein in on and just do our little bit. And I think if everyone can just do their little bit, taking a coffee cup with you and a water bottle, then it all mounts up. And I think the key thing that I think people need to realize is that we don't need a couple of people doing like plastic free perfectly. We need as many people as possible doing it badly. You know, forget your coffee cup a couple of times. That's absolutely fine. Forget your shopping bags. Don't worry about it. But as long as you're trying to do it more and more often, that's when it really makes a difference.
You know what? That's such a good point. And actually, as a surfing community, is this actually quite a popular movement among just you guys as athletes? Have you noticed how just all of you as a community are actually able to do this, like you said?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of sort of our competitions and things are all based around plastic free now. And I think just as sort of a sport, everyone's just really aware of it and really, really getting on it at the moment.
In tennis, so we have obviously a big trick in this, in the sense that all the tournaments, they have a lot of water sponsors and things like that. So we have so many plastic bottles lying around all the time. And until actually recently, I partnered with Chili's, a reusable bottle company. Before that, I remember I was going through 10 a day, because also partly you finish half, then it gets lost among the 15 bottles that are on the ground anyway. And then you're like, I'm not sure which one's mine. I'm not sure. So I'm just going to open a new one. So actually, for the fact that I'm fortunate enough to work with a brand like Chili's, I feel, one, really cool, because no one's got a bottle like me on tour right now. But two, I actually feel so much better about myself. Just the fact that I'm doing a little bit every day. Like you said, I can't live a complete plastic free life. However, I'm doing just a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. That's what matters. And you've always got cold water with a Chili bottle as well. You've got the coolest water on the pitch.
100%. No, but 100%. It's so funny, actually, because I just started using them when I went to Australia. And that's probably the best place to just see how good it is to have cold water.
Yes.
Like on the change of ends, like when I would sit down, even in practice, I remember with my coaches, we were like, oh, wow, this is what it's like to have consistently cold water. Like, this is amazing. Where has this been all my life?
Just sort of wanting to be able to climb into the bottle at that point.
Well, yeah, literally.
So sticky.
Yes, not just on one occasion, that's for sure. I guess with all these just really cool brands, it's so great to see them getting on board with such an amazing movement and looking 100%. at ways to help reduce waste. I need to ask you about, I think, something that I think is the coolest thing since sliced bread is your surfboard that Jaguar Land Rover made for you. Can you please tell me about this? Because honestly, it blows my mind. Like, I was watching a video of how it's made, and I think it's just incredible.
Yeah, so they decided that they wanted to reduce their waste. And in part of the manufacturing process of all of their cars, through the design process, they build models of the car, like life-size models. And so these are foam, clay, and plastic. And so they decided to try and make the foam part of the cars, they shipped them off to a surfboard manufacturer, and have been trying to make, because it's a different kind of foam that you'd usually use in surfboards. And so they've been trying to make it into surfboards. And so it was really cool to try the first board that they'd made. Oh wow!
And could you feel the difference between, because you said that originally surfboards are made from a slightly different foam? Can you actually feel the difference in the surfboards?
Yeah, you can feel it in sort of its buoyancy and the way that it sort of like glides on the water. Yeah, you can really feel the difference.
And did it feel good to surf with, or is it something that it has room for improvement, and then obviously looking to I guess make it better?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would work in certain conditions, like maybe when it's a little bit windy or smaller waves. But yeah, definitely something that could be developed, and maybe there's other brands out there that have foam like that's just going to waste at the moment. So yeah, It's really cool to be for them to be developing that.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. I'm not sure if we talked about it when we met at the event last year, but I grew up on the northern beaches in Sydney, Australia, and I've never surfed, but ever. I've never ever surfed, and I literally grew up on a surf beach, believe it or not. How did you, as someone who grew up here in the UK, not only start surfing, but manage to stick it out long enough to be able to become a professional?
So I moved to the coast when I was probably about 5. And I always just loved, so I live in North Devon, and always just loved splashing around in the ocean. Like whenever we'd go down to the beach, I'd dive in fully clothed. Sorry, Mum and Dad. I was that kid that was always coming off the beach soaking wet.
Oh, that's so good though.
And I got into sort of surf lifesaving and that kind of thing quite early on. And then, my dad and older brother had started surfing, and then they just sort of started taking me with them when I was probably about 10.
Okay.
And I just kind of fell in love with it. And being by the coast, it was sort of something that I could, after school, I could sneak in with my brother. And I think because we could go and do it together, it was like really awesome. He's also been British champion.
Oh wow.
And so he was always pushing me and helping to improve. So I think just being near the coast really inspired me to get in the water all the time.
Oh, that's so good. But that's such a good hobby to have, especially growing up. It's outside, it's active, it's cool, as I've said. So it's just cool.
It's not quite so cool when you're sort of through the winter months when it's like -2 degrees and it's hailing and you're trying to get your wetsuit on in a car park. And I don't think that's quite such a glamorous side of it.
You know what, though? I did see a video because I was obviously trying to do my research and just see that all the cool things you're involved with. And I think it was maybe one of the adverts for one of the, it's like dry clothing or dry robe or
dry
something.
robes.
Yeah, so I saw the video for that. And that you talk about there of when it's like cold and you're wearing like literally like a full body suit, like your hair's covered, your hands, your feet, everything's covered. And I'm like still thinking, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. so you say like, when you're getting changed in your wetsuit and it's hailing and you're like, it's not very cool. I'm like, I'm here. Yeah, I'm thinking, no, that's still really cool. But I'm so lucky because I'm able to do what I love. How did it feel when you started to be able to look to becoming a full-time professional and do something that you love full-time?
Oh, I still have to pinch myself to be able to travel and surf and just do what I love day in, day out and actually call it a job. It's just incredible. I still can't really believe it.
Oh, wow. And actually for you, it wasn't that long ago until you were able to become fully professional. Is that right?
No, it took a while, just sort of building up competition results and working alongside brands to sort of get the sponsorship and things to help me compete full time. I sort of was still working sort of 16-hour days and things to try and fund getting to competitions and traveling and, keeping up my training and things like that. So it took a while to get there, but I think actually it kind of makes me appreciate it even more.
100%. Honestly, actually, I have so much respect for you with that because I guess as a tennis player and with our sport, we're really, really lucky that our professional organization has been in place for a long time now. And we had some incredible women who paved the way for us to have the opportunities that we have today. And so I 100% was very, very unsuccessful for a very long time. However, I never was in a position where I was working a different job to then also be able to go play tennis. So I have no idea what that's like. And I can only imagine what that could be like. So I have so much respect for you on that.
But it's still, it makes you work even harder at your sport, doesn't it?
No, for sure.
It gives you that drive.
No, 100%. So I'm actually really interested in something. I actually want to understand something from you. Is what's it like competing in the water? Because when I'm playing, I'm in the center of a stadium where I can hear the crowd, I can hear photographers, people calling out every time I make a mistake or something, or cheering, doesn't matter. What do you hear when you're in the water with the crowds on the beach? I assume they're quite far away. And what do you focus on?
Yeah, this is so interesting. I've always wanted to have a chat with someone in your sort of sport where, sort of the court doesn't change. It's always the same for you. Yeah. I guess in surfing, you don't really notice the crowd and things so much because you're so focused. You've got to be watching the ocean the whole time. And that kind of depends on the waves. When it's smaller and you're sort of closer to the beach, you can hear what's going on and obviously the commentator and all that kind of thing. And that actually does make it harder for me. So that's really interesting that's something that you're in. It's something I'd never really considered. You're amongst that the whole time during your game. Whereas for me, if it's windy, you can't really hear what's going on the beach and things like that. So it's easy to get away from it. But I guess the thing with surfing is everything's constantly changing.
Yeah.
And I guess I feel like it's taught me some life lessons in that, you have to only focus on what you can control, because, you might go out there and the waves just don't come. You could have a really long lull in the waves and you don't get the waves that you need to get through. There's so much that's out of your control. It's so wind and weather dependent. And that's really interesting that for your sport, it's sort of always the same.
No, for sure. Actually, that's actually what I was going to lead into, because I'm so curious. No, I'm so curious to know for you that for you to be able to train and compete. So much of that is, you can correct me in percentage wise, but so much of that comes down to the waves. What's it like being so reliant on something like you said, is out of your control? Because like you said, for me, besides maybe if it's more windy other days than others, and the heat and stuff, the court is exactly the same. The lines are in exactly the same place. The height of the net is exactly the same. The opponents are pretty much exactly the same all the time as well. So we are in a much more controlled environment, I'd like to think, than you. So what's it like for literally, I guess, to be at the mercy of Mother Nature in a way?
It can be super frustrating, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Especially if there's something that you're really trying to work on and you really just want to practice, whether it's, I don't know, where your arms going, where you're looking, sort of where your weight's centered over your board. And you can be just really focused on trying to get that bit nailed, and you just don't get the opportunity with the waves. You kind of have to just change what you're working on to fit what the waves are allowing. It's really, really interesting. So I've always kind of envied people in sports that, you can just try the same thing over and over and over again until you've got it nailed. Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess for you to be able to practice what you want to practice, you need that condition. Or is it more that this is what you want to practice, however, you just practice in whatever condition there is? So is it basically when you go out onto a competition, you have an idea of, okay, this is what I want to do, and then you just try to adapt it to the conditions that there are?
Yeah, you can kind of watch and see sort of what's going on, and you can figure out a plan. But, the tides are moving in and out, so it's changing as it's coming over different sandbanks, and the wind might pick up. So you have to be adaptable and be able to change your plan quickly. But I think the frustration of that kind of thing, some days it'll go completely your way and you'll just happen to be in the right place for all the best waves that come through. Yeah. And then other days you're just out of luck with it. And I think it's that kind of frustrating, the times where you're out of sync with it, that kind of makes you fall in love with it even more.
Oh no, for sure. And like you said, like all the things you mentioned, the adaptability, and that, you're right. Surfing is just a really good life lesson then as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know a lot about surfing, and I'm actually really, really dying to know. How does a surfing competition work? How does it work, literally?
So, yeah, it's really cool, actually, because not many people are really aware of surfing. It's still quite a niche sport. So I love it when people want to get involved and learn more about it, especially as it's coming up in the Olympics, next year now. So
yes, that's really so awesome. Exciting.
Yeah, that so many people are wanting to get involved and know more. So basically it's normally 20-minute heats, and there'll be 4 of you out in the water at a time. Uh-huh. And you'll all be wearing a different coloured t-shirt rash vest so that the judges can tell you apart. And then so you just catch as many sort of waves as you can, or you want to catch in that 20 minutes. Okay. And each of your waves gets scored between 0 and 10, sorry. Uh-huh. And then the 2 surfers with the 2 highest wave scores go through to the next round.
Oh, wow. And basically you then practice for different routines, different, I guess, tricks essentially, or what would you call it? What do you, or is it just about
different maneuvers, we'd call them, but tricks, or different, trying to link together different maneuvers.
Okay. Oh, wow. Yeah. That's so cool. Oh, wow.
So it is kind of almost mostly relatable to gymnastics, I guess.
Yeah. Oh,
that's like even a little floor routine or something.
Yeah, but that's even harder to me than for me when I think about it, because I guess for me in tennis, it's the ball's in or it's out. My opponent hits a winner or I hit a winner. So it's very black and white, although the odd discussion or heated discussion on maybe a line call or whatever, but otherwise it's very black and white. But when I see sports that there's a judging on, literally, where it's you're given a score and it's more subjective, Is that also an element that can be quite frustrating because
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I think competing on sort of an international level, being an English competitor, you know, we're not renowned for surfing.
Not
so
yet.
You can kind
not
of
yet. You're leading the way.
Yet. We're coming up. Look out, world. We're
exactly.
And yeah, so I think often we are kind of the underdogs. And I wonder, you know, I'm not going to say that it does come into account with the scores, but sometimes you're like, oh, I don't know how fair that feels, but you know.
Yeah. Another good life lesson then.
It's subjective. Yeah, another good life lesson. And never leave it to the judge's decision.
Literally. And what's the atmosphere like at a competition? Because for me, it's hard to imagine a beach being a stressful place, but obviously a competition arena, whatever the arena is, has got stress in there and it's got adrenaline and all that. But what's it like having that on a beach?
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. I've never even sort of thought of it that way. But yeah, obviously before competitions, I guess, I assume you're the same. You get nervous and there's, you know, you're focused and everything. And so you kind of disrelate it from the fact that you're at a beach in a way.
No,
Does
for
that
sure.
sound weird?
No, completely makes sense. No,
you're
for
just
sure.
sort of, you know, you're sort of there for that job. And so you show up and do what you have to do. But yeah, it doesn't mean that when I just go to the beach, when I'm just surfing by myself and having fun, that it takes away from the joy of the beach in any way. I still absolutely love going to the beach.
No, for sure.
And what's it like in tennis with sort of the other girls? Do you sort of travel together? Are you all pretty friendly, or is it pretty serious competition?
I'd say it's a combination. I think there was definitely an era before mine where it was maybe not as friendly and it was a bit more strict and a bit more kind of everyone on their own and kind of doing their thing. However, I think as the years are going, I think there's a lot more camaraderie between the players. So definitely, I think there is more friendships developing 100%. But in general, I think everyone also is more and more able to realize that the competition is on the court and not necessarily off it. And I think it's having that distinction and being able to kind of separate that I think everyone needs to get used to and also realize. So definitely there's more friendship groups now than than I think there were before, although obviously I wasn't there before, but from what I've heard and things like that, for sure. But we see each other everywhere essentially, so we are literally like a traveling circus. So it's a big group of us and around 100 150 players consistently, so you do see the same players. Obviously there's some movement with some players coming up and some people going out, so there is a slight variance, but generally it's quite a consistent group for, I'd say, probably between 5 and 10 year periods. So no, it's a bit, I mean, how big is the surfing community?
So competing on the world qualifying series, the average competition, there's probably about 60 girls, 60 women. Yeah. I've actually been playing a little bit of tennis during lockdown. You might be envious I've been able to get on a court. I am really envious. You'll have to come and see this court when everything's free again. One of the neighbours on my street has a court at the end of their garden, and it's beautiful. It looks down through the valley to the beach, so you'll have to come and try and play it. But, yes, please. Yeah. Can we do an exchange? Can we do? I'll play with you a little bit, and then you get me on a surfboard. Yeah, and then I'm really sorry, but we can film. I'm constantly having to go out of the court to find the tennis balls, so I'll just apologise for that in advance. No, but okay, like you say that, but can we just remember the fact that I've never surfed in my life, so we can just film the whole thing as a blooper reel, because I think the whole thing will be a blooper reel, so we can do that. Perfect. And actually, I wanted to ask, training wise for you, what is it like both in and out of the water? Because I assume, like for me in tennis, I do
obviously I have my on-court training, and on-court training is a combination of technical work or sometimes endurance work, and so there's match play. So there's a big variance on-court as well. But then off-court, obviously, I do a lot of gym, I do a lot of strength work, then different also cardio work off-court as well. So there's a big variance for me, and I wonder what that's like for you in surfing.
Yeah, sort of the same basically, sort of around competition time, I'll be working on like heat drills and things ready for competitions, or just on sort of more off season, I'll be just working on techniques and things like that. And I don't have a surf coach. I'm sort of mostly self-taught.
Okay.
So I just sort of build up little things to work on, and I'll see little bits of video and I think, okay, I need to work on this in my technique. But yeah, it's mostly if there's waves, I'll be trying to get in the water sort of every day. And then, I like to incorporate as well, like gym and, home workouts at the moment.
Yeah, literally.
Lots of those.
Yeah. My living room is my gym.
Oh, yeah, perfect. I think there's a lot of gym living rooms going on at the moment.
Literally. That's incredible, actually. You said that a lot of what you do is self-taught. And how do you do that? Because obviously it's one thing to see something, but then to be able to, I guess, think it through and break it down for you to be able to do it. How do you manage that? Because that I'm in absolute awe of, that's for sure.
I mean, I have had like little bits of training along the way, and sort of, as I said, my older brother surfed, and so he's sort of giving me pointers and things on the way. But I sort of just watch a lot of footage and sort of analyze what they're doing and think, okay, so when I'm doing this maneuver, I need to make sure this arm comes from, up here to down there. I guess the same with tennis, you have such a split second to react to for you, the ball, and for me, the wave.
Yeah.
That it can be tough at times. You like do it and then you're like, oh no, that was like, it's a little bit out of time or a little bit this.
Oh, wow. That's
incredible.
I
think it's all part of the fun, I guess.
No, for sure. And because I was actually then going to ask about what's your coaching setup like and general team setup like, because in tennis, I mean, it depends, obviously, the amount of funds you have and where you are in the ranking and in what you are able to do. Obviously, you usually have a tennis coach now. It depends if you're able to travel with them or not. And then as you see kind of at the top of the game, you'll see a lot of players with very big teams, physios, fitness trainers. I mean, everybody under A to Z under the sun. You can see some really, really big teams.
Amazing.
Yeah. I'm not so much on the big team side. However, I'm still very fortunate, and I still have a coach. Actually, I've got two coaches who I kind of rotate between to I guess, give them a break from me every once in a while. But I have a fitness trainer at base who sometimes travels with me. I have a physio at base. What's it like in surfing? Do these kind of teams exist, or is it very self-sufficient, like you're making it sound?
There are a lot of the girls I compete with will be traveling with coaches and things. Mm-hmm. And sort of now that it's become an Olympic sport, I think countries are sort of starting to put those things in process for their athletes. So the German surf team at the moment will always travel to the competitions with their coach and physio.
Okay.
And things like that. So it's definitely, now that it's becoming more of a known sport maybe, or people are getting into that kind of thing, and it, of course, it's so important, all the nutrition and the sports psychology and all that kind of thing plays such a big role.
And you mentioned the Olympics a few times, and I mean, for me, the Olympics in Rio 2016, when I got to be part of Team GB there, that was probably hands down one of the most incredible life experiences. So not even just as a sport, but for my career, but just a life experience. Yeah. What is it like in the surfing community, knowing that, well, it was going to be Tokyo 2020, but now Tokyo 2021? What does it mean to the surfing community to be a part of the Olympic Games? Because like you said, it's obviously bringing awareness, and can you see that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be just incredible for the level of surfing, especially in the up and coming generations. And I think there's going to be so much more in place for them with coaching and training and things. And I just can't wait to see how the level of surfing just improves. And I think, yeah, everyone's really excited for it. There was a little bit of sort of discussions as to whether it should have been in a wave pool or in the ocean, just because it can be, it's not the same as sort of the sprints or something where, at this exact time, 3:30, the 100-meter sprint is going to go off.
Yeah.
You could switch over to the surfing and there'll be no waves coming through for 5 minutes, and it's not so fun to watch. So there was discussions as to whether it was going to be the best way to showcase the sport. But I think everyone's just pretty excited to sort of have surfing taken, as seriously as all of the other Olympic sports.
No, for sure. Oh, yeah. I mean, but like you said, that just comes with the sport, the unpredictability of what Mother Nature will throw at you. And actually, is it then going to be in the open water, or is it going to be in, what did you call it, a wave making pool?
In a wave pool.
A wave pool.
Yeah. So wave pools have really come along in the last couple of years, and there's been a couple of competitions in wave pools.
Okay.
But it's sort of a different style of surfing. As we said earlier, as part of the skill of surfing is being able to sort of read the ocean and know where the waves are going to come to and how they're going to break and things. And it kind of takes that side away from it.
Yeah.
And so I personally think it's good that it's going to be in the ocean because it's true to surfing.
No, that's so cool. No, I second that. So there's in my newly acquired surfing knowledge, I second that decision. So, but travel is such a huge part of what we both do. But the places you travel to look quite a bit more amazing.
I feel pretty jammy. Yeah.
I mean, your Instagram is just full of amazing beach pictures. So you are literally an Instagram dream. Whereas I tend to be in sports centers on purple courts. So, the vibe is slightly different. What is the most beautiful place you've ever been that you'll always remember?
Oh, that's a really tough one.
Well, I bet because you've got plenty to pick from.
I was actually lucky enough to go to Madagascar on a sponsored trip last year.
Oh, wow.
And just the way of life there was just incredible. And the waves were amazing and the people were so lovely and kind. And just the culture, I just absolutely fell in love with it all.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. I mean, I think we need to have a conversation with the tennis tour. Can we have a tournament in Madagascar, preferably on the beach?
Could someone sort this out, please? Yeah.
Where would you recommend for me to go in the UK to try surfing? What's your beach recommendation?
Come here.
Okay.
I'll teach you.
Sold.
Sold. Okay. As soon as we can, you're coming here for a surfing
literally
lesson.
sold.
Let's wait until the water's a little bit warmer now, though.
Oh no! Well, you know what? If I can have the full body suit, I'm in. I'm not shy about cold water, so I'm happy either way.
Yeah, perfect.
So I saw you have a separate Instagram account for food, and a fellow foodie I am myself. How important is food for you?
I think it's so key in just even in your motivation levels, if you've eaten good food, I don't know if you feel the same. I just feel so much more motivated to get up at, 6 a.m. alarms or whatever and get in the ocean when it's windy and gross or whatever it may be. I just feel so much more motivated and energized. And I think I'm quite lucky that I've always had pretty good eating habits from a young age. My mum was always really into cooking and things, so I sort of learnt to cook, and I love cooking from scratch and knowing what's going into my meals.
That's such good habits. That's such good habits. No, for sure. Me too. When I was growing up, my mum has always been very conscious, very health conscious. She's a dentist and she's always been in a holistic environment, and she did a lot of nutrition courses when she was when she was also studying, and even now she reads so much into it. So I grew up with just luckily with good habits. So I was always the kid. I was always the kid that went to school with a tin of tuna and rye bread and carrot sticks. And I remember looking at the kids who came in with their Nutella sandwiches and their crisps and thinking why is my life like this? What did I do wrong? And now looking back, I feel so lucky because although I know it's widely publicized that I bake a lot, I actually do.
Yeah,
I actually do prefer a fruit salad over a baked good. So, which is maybe I should post more fruit salads. But like you said, I think just growing up with good habits is such a big part of carrying it through, I guess, into adulthood.
But then there's definitely the balance. I do have a massive sweet tooth. I'm definitely not going to lie about that.
Oh no, brilliant.
And I love baking as well. Like there's cardamom buns on the go at the moment.
Okay.
Here. So giving those a try.
So you make cardamom buns?
Yeah.
Can I please have the recipe?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Okay,
100%.
continue.
And I think it's all about balance. If you're following quite a strict sort of diet coming around competitions and things, it's so much harder to follow if you don't give yourself little treats every now and again.
Oh, no, for sure. I completely agree with that. I mean, for me, a big part of eating is also, it's soul food for me in a big way.
Exactly.
And it's something that actually brings me an amazing amount of joy.
Oh, 100%,
like just eating something good, like grandmother's cooking, I think is a perfect example always. Like for my parents are Hungarian, and I have all my extended family, unfortunately no grandparents now, they've all passed away now, but they are all in Hungary still. So whenever I was a young girl, I would go to Hungary, and my favorite memories are just eating my grandmother's cooking. And trust me, there was not a lot that was healthy about it, but I was a very healthy kid. So I think having a good relationship with food, and like you said, balance is such a big part of being able to enjoy it, but then still being able to fuel your body, right? And like we have to, for you for surfing and me for tennis, that's for sure. And so finally, when lockdown is lifted, where is the first place you really want to go?
Well, everything's kind of shifting and changing at the moment.
Okay.
Sort of all of my competitions are cancelled, so that sort of changed my plans. I should be in Europe at the moment. I think I had contests in Portugal and Senegal in Africa.
Oh, wow.
So I guess I just have to wait and see really until I know sort of which countries are sort of safe to travel to, and which events are still on where. But I think possibly Portugal. I have some friends down there that I'd love to go and see, and it's amazing waves and just kind of a little bit close to home.
Oh, that's so nice.
And they have amazing pastries there too. So.
Okay, well then I'm there. I'm there as well. But thank you so much for coming on to my show. I'm really looking forward to the day that you can give me my first ever surfing lesson, and
we have to do it.
It's now official. It's on this podcast. So at one point,
reel
exactly, the bloopers reel of you learning tennis and me learning surfing. I think I know which one's going to be funnier, but I'm so excited for that. So thank you so much.
Oh, I can't wait.
Thank you to everyone for listening to episode 3. Don't forget to check out the previous episodes if you haven't already. And make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and follow me across social media at Johanna Konta, or for puppy spam, follow my dog at Bono the Blue Dachshund. I highly recommend his account. I think he does a really great job on it. But anyway, I'll be back soon with more friends and answers to your questions. See you then.